In this module, we're going to take a look at creating both the automatic and the manual tracks in order to start feeding some information into our 3D camera tracker so that we can start getting out the information that we need, which is going to be a camera movement that's going to be hopefully the exact opposite of the movement of the head, as well as a point cloud that's going to represent the head in 3D space. So let's go ahead and jump into Nuke and get started with that. Okay, we're back here in Nuke and we're right where we left off. So it doesn't matter whether we begin with our automatic trackers or our manual trackers first. In the end, they're both going to have to be solved at the same time anyway. I'm going to choose to begin with my manual trackers just because of just really personal preference. So to start that, I'm going to go ahead and create a new node, the tracker node, right there. And I'm going to plug that into my green footage. We determined in the last module that the green channel was the least noisy, had the better contrast, and that's ideal for tracking. However, at any point, of course, can connect my tracker back to the red channel or even the original footage. Okay, now before I begin creating my trackers, there are a few settings I want to change. Keep in mind these settings are unique to this footage. Of course, every piece of footage is going to be different, but I'll at least explain the changes and why I'm making them for this footage. The first change is turning on Adjust for Luminance. Now, the reason is that several of these tracking markers do go into shadow. You can kind of see over there. And while most of them will be lost, there's a few we can kind of preserve a little bit by keeping Adjust for Luminance changes on. The other change I'm going to make is to the epsilon and resolution. By dropping this number down, it's actually going to force Nuke to keep trying to find better and better matches, which, especially for such kind of nondescript, very kind of blurry tracking markers, that'll help at least a little bit. I'm now going to jump down here to auto tracking and a couple other changes here. The first one is going to be to the warp type. Currently it's set to translate, which means the patterns, it's only going to be searching up, down, left, right, basically in the X and the Y. And I want to make sure it also solves for scale and even possibly rotation of the trackers. You can even see they kind of get these strange oblong shapes as he kind of turns his head away. So adjusting this to translate, rotate, and scale will help us out a little bit. You can also try the affine. I've been told though that that's a little bit better for things that have recognizable hard edges. And the only other change we're going to make is at the moment it's only going to grab a new pattern if the error is above 0.001. Chances are that's a very low value. That error is almost always going to be above. So I'm going to go ahead and reduce this. And technically I'm increasing it, but that way it's now has a higher threshold and it'll be less likely to immediately grab a new pattern. All right, I'm going to jump back to tracker. I'm going to rewind to frame 0. Go ahead and actually give myself a little bit space here so I get my buttons back. And I'm going to hit Add Track. I'm going to choose to start tracking right up on his forehead here. That's an easy to see one, right there. And this inner square here, I'll always call them inner circles or inner squares, is going to be the actual pattern that's going to be tracked. Try not to bring it too tight on the pattern because the contrast of the bright to the dark is part of the pattern. And then this outer one over here is going to be the area that Nuke is going to search. So between every frame, it'll search this distance. Very fast moving footage, you need a larger search area. Slow moving footage, you can get away with a smaller one. So I'm going to choose kind of a medium distance here. Right. Once I have that, I can come up here to the top and use these buttons to begin tracking. You can see this one will track forward or track to the end. Since I'm at frame 0, that's what I want. So I'll go ahead and hit track, and you can see it's going to begin tracking the pattern. I'm going to go ahead and pause this and we'll come back as soon as it's done. Okay, we're back and the track for this point is done. It took roughly a minute, and you can see it's done a pretty decent job. It's kind of tracking with it most of the time. It jitters around a little bit when it's here kind of in the intense shadowy area. Right about there I saw a little bit of bouncing, but for the most part it's done a pretty decent job. I can always go back in at any point and adjust any tracks I don't like. For example, maybe these are slipped off a bit here. You can see those kind of maybe didn't go far over enough, but I can just come in here and you can see I can adjust them. I can even use my arrow keys to kind of jump back and forth maybe just fix those that kind of had the key that was a little bit off. You can see over there, for example, it's a little bit off, and I can just nudge that back over, and I can do that as many times as I need to. I'm going to do a lot of this kind of work between clips, just so I don't have to bore you with all of that, but you can make little corrections just like that. So that's going to be the basic process for all the trackers. There will be occasions where we might have to split trackers up though. For example, take a look at this one here. You can see that it's going to track probably pretty well up until it pretty much disappears. So I'm going to handle those as two separate tracks. I'm going to go ahead and add a tracker. We'll go ahead and position it right over here. And we'll kind of get, whatever we can out of it. Let's go ahead and just do that. Start our track. We're at frame 0. We'll track forward. And it'll do okay for probably the first, 50 frames or so. But you'll see it's going to slip off there. It's already jumping. I'm just going to hit cancel. And what I'm going to do is come back to where it was last a good track, which was roughly about here at frame 40. And I'll come over here and clear forward. So basically, just give me those 40 frames. You might think that's not a very long track, but something is going to be better than nothing. So to kind of continue this one though, and I'm not really going to continue it, it's more just kind of continuing tracking the same point in our minds. To Nuke, it'll be a whole new point. I'm going to come here to when it kind of returns. I'm going to wait till it's in a little better focus. Kind of maybe right there. And I'll just make a new track. So we'll add a track. We'll go ahead and move over to here. Let's go ahead and do the same thing. We'll bring our pattern down. Give it a decent search area. And now I'm going to track forward and backward. I'll go ahead and track forward first. I'll go ahead and pause while it does its thing. Okay, you can see it's gone ahead and tracked pretty well. Now I'm going to go back to the first keyframe here, frame 202, and now I'm just going to track backwards, and that's just using this other one right here. So track to start. All right, and it's going to lose that one pretty quick because it's going to go kind of out of view there. You can see it's already jumping. I'm going to go ahead and hit cancel. And we'll go back to where it was still good, which is roughly, I'd say about here, maybe 165. And we'll go ahead and clear backward. So you can see we still have a decent amount of track on this one as well. So, and some points you're not going to be able to maybe get, two parts either. You may have to just stick with one part. For example, the tracker on the chin. Let's go ahead and try that one. I'm going to go ahead and add a track. Bring that down right there. All right, shrink that down, and let's go ahead and track that one now. Go ahead and hit track, and I'll pause while it does its thing. Okay, that one's done. Again, took a little over a minute. It actually did a little better than I thought it would. However, if you watch here in these really kind of dark, shadowy areas, you can see the track gets pretty lost and jumps around quite a bit. So I have a choice. I can come in here and do those manual adjustments and do my best visually to move each key to where I think it should go. Or I could just come here to where I know it was last pretty good, which was right about, you can see it's already jumping there, but I'd say right about here it's still pretty good, and just blow away the rest of that. And I can choose whether I want to redo that one with another tracker or not. But that's the basics of creating these manual tracks. So what I'm going to do between the next clips is I'm going to go in and track the rest of the points. These over here, these at the corners. The bridge of the nose will be a little bit challenging because it does disappear under the highlight. You can see if I can find it there. It happens pretty quick. Right there you can see most of it's all of a sudden gone. So you may not get much of a track off that one at the beginning, only when it's kind of at the far right over here. But anyway, I'll go ahead and create all those tracks, and I'll show you what I have. I'll see you guys in the next clip.